Please rise. The Honorable Court of Common Pleas is now open pursuant to adjournment. The Honorable Judge Brendan J. Sheehan presiding.
All right, you may be seated. Good morning. We're here today on a case number 682214, State of Ohio versus Timmeka Eggleton. Timmeka, is that you?
Yes, sir.
Timmeka, you're here with your lawyers, Mr. Gibbons and Mr. Neff. State of Ohio is here with Ms. Ferelia and Ms. Pateo. On June 11th of this year, you pled guilty to murder, count 3, which is a unclassified felony with potential sentence of 15 years to life. You pled guilty to count 4, felonious assault with a potential sentence of 2 to 8 years and or a $15,000 fine. You pled guilty to count 5, endangering children, a felony of the second degree, potential sentence 2 to 8 years and or a $15,000 fine. At the time of the plea, you were advised of the Reagan-Toke sentencing, which talked about the indefinite sentences, and you further were advised that these were non-allied offenses. Further, the state defense had told me you're looking at a range from 19 to 31 to life for these crimes. At the time of that plea, I, at the request of your lawyers, ordered a pre-sentence investigation report. I received a report dated June 28th from Ms. Minnow from the probation department, which I shared with all counsel. I also received a mitigation of penalty report from the court psychiatric clinic, and that's authored by Susan Hatters-Friedman, and I shared that with all counsel. Mr. Gibbons, Mr. Neff, Ms. Ferelia, Ms. Pateo, you've all had a chance to review these reports. Is there any additions or corrections to any of these reports?
Not on behalf of the state, Your Honor.
Your Honor, Mr. Neff and I have had the opportunity to review both reports, and we appreciate you getting the psych evaluation, and they're all correct.
Thank you. All right. Also, this court has reviewed, I received a sentencing memorandum from the state of Ohio, which I have reviewed, and I also had received letters that were addressed to me, and I'm going to identify what letters they were from. First letter I reviewed was from Russ Gates, the guardian ad litem for the victim in this matter. I reviewed his letter. I received a letter from Pastor Dolly Loomis, which I had reviewed. Reviewed a letter from Deanna Sutherland. And I also reviewed a letter from I apologize if I said this wrong. I guess it's just from friends. I guess it's not titled. And then another one from Greenie Kostecki. Kostecki. Another letter from a Megan Dennison, and finally another letter from Davidson again. So that's what this court has reviewed. Is there anything additional that the state or defense would like this court to review before we proceed to sentencing?
No, Your Honor, just the fact that we have our client's adoptive mother, Angela Lindstrom, who resides in Escanaba, Michigan currently, and she's available by Zoom to make some comments.
Correct, and I have allowed her to be available by Zoom. I just asked that she stay muted until asked to speak, and then at that time she can unmute herself to speak at that time. All right. Ms. Eggleton, are you ready to proceed to sentencing today?
Yes, Yes, sir.
All right, very good. So here's how I'm going to proceed. I'm going to start with the state of Ohio. I'll hear from the state, any of the victim representatives who wish to speak. And then once I hear from the state's presentation, I'll turn to the defense. I'll hear from your lawyers, Ms. Eggleton. I'll hear from anyone who wants to speak on your behalf, and then I'll hear from you, and then I'll make a sentencing decision, okay? All right, with that being said, Ms. Farrelly, are you ready to proceed?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning. Members of Curtis's family are here and would like to address you. His paternal grandmother, Jeanette Edinburgh, will be the first one to speak.
Sure. And again, I don't mind when you come up and speak, just come up to the podium. We have a court reporter here, and her duty is to record everything being said in the courtroom, so I'm going to ask you to speak slow and clear and identify yourself for the court reporter.
Good morning, sir.
Hi.
Hi,
Would you like to say your name and spell your first and last name for us?
Jeanette Edinburgh, JeanetteEdinburgh.
Okay. What would you like to say to me?
Your Honor, I'm very hurt. My whole family is hurt. Curtis, baby Curtis was a blessing to all of us, to my family, my son. It's still kind of a he was a blessing. Like I said, once again, Miss Eggleton, has really damaged our family. He was the love of all of us. He was a joy to all of us. I have a lot of anger in my heart, but God is working with me on this. So what I would like to say, that I hope that Ms. Eggleton have time to think about what she done, because she took something from us that was a joy. I'm gonna miss his smiles, I will miss his talks. I'm gonna miss him calling me Nana. I'm gonna miss all of that. I have a lot more to say, but right now I can't really.
How long had Curtis been with you for?
Well, the first time I saw Curtis was when I was visiting him in foster visits. At first he wasn't getting too attached to me, but after I started going to see him, he got attached to me. Nervous for one
That's
thing,
okay.
but I really didn't know Curtis was in my life until my son called me at work and videoed on video chat. And after a while, my spirit told me to go and let him know that he had a grandmother in his life. And after that, I got really attached to him. I went to see him. Every now and then I'll go see him and his brother and take him candy or whatever, you know. That's all I have to say right now.
Well, thank you for coming here, and I appreciate you taking the time to share with me your relationship.
Thank you, sir.
LaToya Witcher is the paternal aunt.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Do you want to spell your first and last name for our court reporter?
Latoria, L-A-T-O-R-Y-A, W-I-T-C-H-E-R.
Thank you.
Your Honor, I just want to say that, the pain that I feel within this past year, losing my nephew, has been one of the most deadliest pains I could ever feel. By me being a mother of two and a mother of so many within our city of Cleveland's communities, it just heartbreaks me. Everybody want to know why and got so many questions for Ms. Eggleton. But to be honest with you, Your Honor, she a disgrace as a mother. She's a disgrace as a woman, a black woman within our communities. Because I can't understand, how could you just take a life of a child? How could you, phantom yourself to do the crime that she did? We'll never know that answer. Only Ms. Eggleton knows. Only Ms. Eggleton has to, live with her decision of what she did. And we have to live with the pain of Curtis. I still give him 5 kisses every morning on his urn, which sits on my mantle in my museum at home. He walks with me, he talks with me every day. He gives me the strength to keep pushing forward, to speak for other children and other fathers and other mothers, so they won't have to bear the pain that my family has to bear. And, I leave this decision within your hands of what her punishment in the physical should be. But spiritually, Ms. Eggleton knows that her punishment is way greater than any court could ever give. I'm just hurt. I'm hurt as an aunt. I'm Curtis's only aunt. And and the last memory I have of him is at my son's prom send-off, where he asked me, Auntie, can I take a picture? Can I take a picture? And I said, wait a minute, just give me a second. He was just like, Auntie, I want to take this picture. I want to take the picture. And we finally did. And, he gave me my 5 kisses and he ran off to be with my son and daughter, not knowing that was going to be the last time I ever was able to get a hug or a kiss from my nephew. I was there for his first Thanksgiving with us, try to celebrate birthdays. I also think about his brother all the time. What would he grow up to be like, knowing that he was in the foster system and it wasn't of his own fault? But like I said, I'm just hurt, Your Honor. Like I said, as an aunt, as a mother, as a community leader in our city. And I just hope that, she can make peace with her son as she sits in that cold cell every day. I hope that she asks the gods that, for forgiveness, because that's the most important thing, forgiveness. I forgive Ms. Eggleton for her actions because that's what God says to do. But I'm still angry because she took something away from our family. She took Curtis away from us to watch him grow up, to watch what kind of man he could have become. And, really that's all I have to say, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Robert Edinburgh, Curtis's father.
How you doing, Your Honor?
I'm sorry, Robert. Can you just say your first and last name for the court reporter?
Robert Edinburgh. You want me to spell it?
Yeah, please.
Edinburgh.
Thank you.
I'm really not a talkative person. Like, we keep all my emotions inside. This has been the most difficult thing I ever had to go through. I never thought I'd be in a situation like this. I keep replaying the same moment, June 14th. Every day I wake up, I kissed him on his forehead, told him I would come back to him. Don't cry, I love you. I had to work a double that morning. I didn't expect for me to have a phone call in the next couple hours saying, hurry up and come back home, he hit his head. Rushed to the hospital. She's sitting in the room, rocking back and forth. Famous statement, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I know you're gonna blame me for this, but I'm sorry. I tried to comfort her and get a hug from her, but it was so cold. Like, without a care in the world. I asked the doctors, did they revive him? They told me they couldn't do nothing for him. They take him to another room, take the cloth off him. His eyes are still open, still shaking. Blood coming out his nose. I'm holding his hand. His hand get colder and colder while I stand there. Didn't want to leave him again. My nephew had to pull me out of there. I just want to know why. What made you do this? What was the purpose of all this? You had a decision. God gave you a decision to be a mother. God gave me a decision to be a man. I went for 3 years straight to supervise visits once a week to see my son. For me to have an attachment, I had to let him know that I was never going to abandon him. I knew when he got older, he was going to even look for me and look for my side of the family. I just needed to let him know that I loved him, regardless of where he was at. In the situation that we in, I told her plenty of times if I couldn't have him the way I wanted to, I should have let him stay in foster care because they loved him way more than that she could ever. My experience with my son was great. I just hope that you really give my son justice, because I would. I'm sorry, I should be a little bit more talkative, but this is like a hard statement for me to be.
Appreciate you coming down, Robert, and thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Michelle Moody and Zach Moody will address you now.
Hi, I just asked if you could say your name and spell it.
Michelle, Michelle, Moody, Moody. Your Honor, I want to thank you for allowing me to come up here and speak today. Every morning, I wake up with the pain that Curtis is gone. I miss his big hugs, his gentle kisses, his laughter. He was the true meaning of joy. I go to bed remembering the I love you, Mom. The I missed you, Mommy. That big smile that warmed our hearts. But every day he is missing in our lives. Gone. The emptiness and the sadness, it doesn't go away. You are a very violent person. I've had to walk on eggshells in the past. Everything I said to you, everything I've ever done. I'm not today. I'm angry. I'm mad. You took him from us. You did that. I'm tired of your lies. I'm tired of your excuses. You need to stop blaming your childhood and your past for your actions just because you didn't have the best life growing up. You cannot take someone else's life. That was wrong. You had us. You had other family that was there for you. We would have done anything for you and that little boy. We were there for you. We wanted to help you, and resources were given to you time after time after time. A mother is supposed to make her children feel safe, feel loved. She kisses their boo-boos and wipes their tears. She protects them. You didn't just fail Curtis, you failed all of your children, all of them. You are no mother, you're a monster. I think about his last minutes of life. How scared he must have been. The pain and the abuse that he endured that day, and probably months before then. I just pray that God took him quickly. But Curtis died knowing love. He knew the love from others, and he knew the love that our family gave him. He had family. He had a loving family and a safe family. He should be here today with us. The system, a different system, but the system failed him once, and it cannot fail him again. The defendant needs to spend the rest of her life in prison. She needs to be reminded every day of why she is there and the precious life she took from all of us. Each day is a struggle, but we push through knowing that one day we'll be together with Curtis again, and this time it's gonna be forever. And you don't get that. You're going to hell. You're not getting that. I'm sorry.
Miss Moody, how long had Curtis been with you?
He came to us right from the hospital at 7 days old, 4.5 pounds.
He was with you since 7 days old.
7 days old. We had him for 2.5 years. He's the most precious boy.
And after he was taken away from you, how long after did he pass away?
I think it was 11 months.
11 months.
It was 3 months after the protective order was dropped, and 11 months that he left our home. We got to see him 3 or 4 times after that, and it was so hard. I tried to reach out, and then no phone calls, no texts. It had been 5 months before he died. It's the last time we had spoke to him through a Skype. We just lost him over and over and over again.
Anything else you'd like to say?
Oh,
Thank you for being here.
thank you.
Your Honor, on behalf of the state of Ohio, the purposes and principles of sentencing are to punish an offender and to protect the public. The state of Ohio has an envelope, Your Honor, that we would like you to make part and parcel of the record. It is for you to look at in making your determination of sentence. This envelope I shared with the defense has, the contents are an autopsy report, autopsy photographs, and there is a still photograph of the defendant pushing a stroller with this dead child in the stroller. So I'm going to hand you this with your permission.
Mr. Davis, Mr. Neff, you've reviewed the contents of this envelope?
Your Honor, we have, and we don't object.
Okay, thank you.
with regards to the documents that you have in front of you, my colleague and I met with the medical examiner's office with regards to the injuries that Curtis suffered. And I think what struck both of us was the amount of injuries he suffered. And the fatal injury was really the laceration of the back of his heart. And that could only be inflicted by significant force. The medical examiner also indicated to us that a lot of these blunt force impacts that were inflicted on this child, he was still alive at the time. When we talk about children, we talk about the innocence that they give to society, that they bring to each and every one of us. The innocence of laughter, the innocence of doing silly things. This woman before you today has brought 6 children into this world, and she does not have custody of any one of them. Curtis was born on February 1st of 2020. He immediately went into foster care to this family out of town. Once paternity was established, the Edinburgh family began participating in visitations. But all along, this child was thriving. I don't know how this happened in juvenile court. I don't know how a judge could look at this defendant's background and give this child back without protective supervision. This judge failed this child. And she failed our community because Curtis was part of our community. In the end, it's the actions of the mother. She had this child for 2.5 months without protective supervision. And in that 2.5 months, she must have terrorized this child. But she had the wherewithal that when she's at the hospital, she concocts a story. And that tells me that you know the difference between right and wrong. She sent the police, the Cleveland Police Homicide Unit, to the Lonnie Burton Recreational Park because she was at the splash pad that day, and this poor child fell and hit his head. Well, in fact, it was closed. And she walked around the city of Cleveland because the analyst in the homicide unit was able to trace her pushing a stroller in the photograph that we've submitted to this court with a dead child in it, and the other little brother sitting in the back playing with his head. She is an habitual liar. And I don't know how you ferret that out when you are listening to her and she puts on a show to get her kid back. I don't know how this child fell through the cracks so badly. But now, Judge, it's incumbent on you to look at all the sentencing factors. And when you do that, I think you have no choice but to give her the maximum amount of time. I know, like Miss Moody said, a lot of people have had bad upbringings. A lot of people have been harmed. A lot of people have been abused. They don't go out and kill children. And until we get that message out in this community Children are going to continue to die at the hands of a parent who cannot, will not take care of them because they become a paycheck on one hand and a burden on the other. That is not what our society is about. Our society is about taking care of children and old people because they are the most vulnerable members of our community. The sentence in this case should reflect the harm that has come to Curtis Witcher. These are the pictures that were given to the state of Ohio, and it shows a fun, loving little boy that was growing and thriving. And you now have an autopsy report that shows what his demise was. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ferrelia. I just want to remind people, I understand this is an emotional sentence. Just please, no outburst or yelling. All right, I'm going to turn now to the defense. Mr. Gibbons, would you offer mitigation at this time?
Certainly, Your Honor. Just to put this in context, and this was so predictable, and we have a system, and let's be real here. This child should never have been returned to my client, Mr. Neff's client. And whether that was just a who cares attitude over in the court there, I don't know, but this woman had a history of mental problems. And just to put this in context, Your Honor, and we're not disputing any of the things that are fact in this case. We're not disputing that she caused the death of this child. We're not disputing that she lied and misled to the police officers when they came to investigate the matter. We're not disputing any of that. But it's black and white that this woman, when she was in that palatial building over on Quincy Avenue, 9300 Quincy, and in front of a common police court judge, juvenile division, her past history and past mental problems were so blatantly obvious. And I'm certain that the thought in your mind, Your Honor, right now is Gibbons trying to mislead or blame the system for what happened. And we're not doing that. But we have to have the full picture. And the full picture is that there are a lot of situations that were outlined in that very famous book, Finding Fish, that occur in our county, in Cuyahoga County. They've been going on since time immemorial. This woman grew up in the Cedar Central Projects. She was neglected along with her other children. She entered the foster care system at a very early age. She was subjected while in the foster system set up by Cuyahoga County. She was subjected to horrific physical, mental, and sexual abuse. She was in that system for an extended period of time. Luckily for her, a young lady by the name of Angela Lindstrom came along and entered her life. Miss Lindstrom, who did live in Cleveland, presently resides in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, Escanaba, Michigan. And her then husband adopted our client at a very early age, 13, 14. Miss Lindstrom, who I expect will tell you about some of the horrific abuse that Angela or Timmeka suffered in that time frame when she was in the Cuyahoga County sponsored foster care system. She knows the records intimately from her adoption process. The only good thing that has happened in Timmeka's life has been this young lady, Angela Lindstrom. She took her up to live in northern Michigan, and that must have been a sort of an eye-opening experience for all involved. Miss Eggleton being black and living in the UP. She adjusted as best as she could while living with Angela in Escanaba. There were bumps along the way. She separated at some point in time from her natural mother, or from her adoptive mother. And we had many conversations by way of Zoom that the court was good enough to sponsor. And Miss Lindstrom, being one rock-solid human being and an individual whose heart is in the right place, told her daughter, who she loves, despite all of this, to do the right thing, to accept responsibility for this horrific act, and go to Marysville. And we all know that Timmeka is going to go to Marysville for an extended period of time. That amount of time is in your hands, Your Honor. And Mr. Neff and I are very confident in your ability as a judge, your ability to see through situations and assess situations and punish her in a reasonable, realistic fashion. And we're not going to beg you for any particular sentence, because I don't beg for anybody, but I do trust in your judgment, Judge. So I'm asking you to simply put this situation in context, as horrific as can be, and keep in mind that the genesis of this death probably occurred many moons ago in the Cedar Central projects and in the foster care system of this state and this county. Now, am I blaming the foster care system? Is Mr. Neff blaming the Common Pleas Court Juvenile Division for the death of this child? Obviously not. Timmeka is an adult. She has a free will. She chose to inflict the harm, the ultimate harm, upon her own child, and she has to pay the price. And we all know that a price has to be paid because that's what the law is going to demand. However, I'm asking you, Your Honor, to listen to Angela, her mother, with an open mind, and just place in context, after you hear the abuse that Timmeka suffered when she herself was a young child. And I'm sure that you will understand the predictability of this act. And I've had many conversations with Angela, as well as Mr. Neff, and it'll come from her mouth, Your Honor, but the one thing that struck me in all of our conversations about Timmeka, and there's no question at this point in time, she's a failed human being, a tragically failed human being. Her foster mom, adoptive mom, when she got her up to Michigan, described her as being a relatively happy, adjusted child, despite what she herself had gone through. And the child is dead. Timmeka's going to go to Marysville for a long time. The family is left with the debris from this incident. The foster parents, I read every single word that in the letters that they sent to this judge over on Quincy Avenue, and a 2-year-old sitting as a judge would never have given this child back to Timmeka. But it happened, and everybody has to deal with it, especially the family, the foster parents, And the foster parents were loving people, devoted people. And Timmeka's gonna pay the price. However, Your Honor, I'm asking you to understand her, not the act, not the homicide, not the beating, which is what it was, but understand how she got there. And it's a pathetic, sad story today. It was a pathetic, sad story when Timmeka went into foster care. And the only friend that this young lady has on her trip to Marysville is the young lady who's going to speak to you from the state of Michigan, because she is a rock-solid human being, and she did her best to grab Timmeka and keep her from going over the cliff, but it didn't happen. And that's what we have to deal with.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbons. You want to unmute, or I don't know, Leo, is she able to speak at this time? I understand you're by Zoom. I'm just going to ask you to keep your voice up. We have a court reporter here who's recording everything you say.
Oh, she does it. I hear her.
Yeah, so let me make sure Leo will figure this out. All right. Ma'am, would you like to say and spell your first and last name for the record?
Need to unmute at your end.
Should I call her?
Yeah.
You have to unmute.
There it goes.
There you go. There you go. Want to say and spell your first and last name again?
Angela Lindstrom, ANGELA LINDSTROM.
Thank you. And what would you like to say to me, ma'am?
Your Honor, I have been Timmeka's mommy since she was 9 years old. However, I have known Timmeka since she was 6. I knew and interacted with her biological mother and her 5 other siblings prior to her entering foster care. Timmeka is a soul who came into this world, much like many, under horrible circumstances. From the moment of conception, she was not provided the proper nourishment that a soul needs to flourish into a beautiful being that can radiate love, mercy, and compassion. The Timmeka I met was a mostly happy, loving ball of energy that one could not help but adore. She was born with borderline intellectual functioning and was early on diagnosed with ADHD and oppositional defiant disorder. The household she was born into was one of neglect. The house was dirty, roads infested. Several siblings had to share a filthy, broken bed, and the biological mother was never fit to care for her children. When she was placed into foster care, I was unable to have contact with her for 2 years while the biological mother's parental rights were still in place, except for the supervised family visits. Timmeka had been placed into a group home when I was finally able to get her after completing the foster to adopt courses, where I was provided with the information from the caseworker that Timmeka had been physically, mentally, and sexually abused and tortured in her previous foster homes, that she now had reactive attachment disorder, and gaining her trust, love, and being able to get the truth could prove to be difficult. I chose to continue with the adoption so that she could be with her biological sister and have a real family. I chose to love her and pray that the love that she was given would heal all those broken pieces. We brought her into a home with love, compassion, structure, and understanding. However, it was a battle of nature versus nurture. We did not have the understanding of mental illness that we have today. And if we had, she wouldn't have received the help that she needed back then. Life with Timmeka was not easy. I left Cleveland when she was 14. A year later, she joined me in Michigan so that she could get the one-on-one attention that she deserved and needed. It went well until it didn't. She was being a regular teenager and challenging boundaries while I was caring for my dying father. So I had to send her back to her father in Cleveland, just before she turned 17. From that moment, contact with her was sporadic. She left her dad's home a few months later I showed her that she could still count on me and have whatever relationship she chose. I love my daughter. I have not always agreed with the way that she lived her life, but I have always loved her and I have told her so. I tried to steer her in the right direction for assistance, knowing that she needed far more help than I could provide. At the end of the day, I am just a mother. A mentally well Timmeka is loving, kind, considerate, and a joy to be around. I ask that Timmeka please be given a fair sentence because she is also a victim in her own right. She can be rehabilitated when provided with structure and goals. I pray that someday before I pass, I can be with her again. Thank you, Your Honor, for your time and your consideration.
Thank you. I just asked if you could mute yourself then, now, at that time. Thank you. Mr. Gibbons, anyone else before I hear from your client?
Judge, one moment. No, you can stay seated. You got that man in his eyes. Got it? You want her to stand, Judge?
Sure.
Sure, stand.
Jake, if you'd like to stand, what would you like to say to me?
Your Honor, I feel as a person, a sister, a mother, a daughter, I should have never got him back because I wasn't fit to be a mother. I knew that. I wanted him to stay with the movie family, but I was more pressured into getting him back because of the other family. They wanted him. I always wanted him to stay with them because I knew I wasn't fit. I gave my other kids up because I knew I wasn't fit to be a mother. I don't know how to be a mother. I don't even know who I am. And that's all I can say. And I apologize to everyone that I've hurt. That's all I can say.
You know, Timmeka, I have to always start a sentencing by reminding everyone what is the purposes and principles of what I do here. And that is, it's to punish you, protect the public from future crimes by you and others, using the minimum sanctions that this court determines accomplishes the purpose without imposing an unnecessary burden on court or government resources. I always have to consider the need for incapacitation, deterrence, rehabilitation, and restitution. The sentence I impose should be commensurate with and not demeaning to the seriousness of your conduct, its impact on the victim, and consistent with sentences for similar crimes by similar offenders. The sentence is not based on your race, your ethnicity, your gender, or your religion. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
All right. You know, this case causes us to confront an often painful reality, the cycle of neglect that can affect families across generations. Ms. Eggleton, you claim to have experienced neglect and abuse throughout your life. Without any stable parental role models, you went on to have 6 children, Curtis being the 4th. Curtis and his older brother and sisters were all removed from your care. Social services intervened to provide support systems aimed not only to protect the children, but also to heal your families. Through these efforts, our community tried to provide necessary resources and assistance to break the cycle of neglect and to foster an environment where you and your children could thrive. But as this case demonstrates, social services are not enough to break this cycle of abuse and neglect. Change requires effort from the mother. The record here shows that you abused and manipulated anyone who tried to help you. The overriding theme from professionals in contact with you is that you were verbally abusive, yelling, screaming, insulting, and threatening them. Apparently, you even threatened the director of a visiting center to the point where the police were called and a new location for visitation had to be located. I have a stack of letters from people who knew Curtis. Every one of them speak to how happy and active Curtis was in foster care. They said he enjoyed snuggling with his foster parents. They said he enjoyed running to his foster dad every day when the father came home from work, just so he could be scooped up in his arms. He had a little four-wheeler to play outside. He got to watch pigs, steer, chicken, cats, and dogs. He loved searching for rabbits and groundhogs. He had sleepovers at his grandparents' house. There could be no doubt that he was absolutely thriving there. But for some reason, you couldn't let Curtis go. You couldn't let him thrive. 3 children before you escaped you, but you weren't going to let Curtis be. As you had done throughout your life, you lied, you manipulated to get what you wanted. You made completely false accusations of sexual abuse against Curtis's loving foster family. You subjected them and him to invasive examinations necessary to investigate these false allegations. Eventually, you manipulated the system to tear Curtis from this safe, loving home into a nightmare existence. You were clearly frustrated with the potty training Curtis was going through. As a 3-year-old boy who had just been traumatized by being removed from a home he had known from birth, it's entirely normal for Curtis to have frequent accidents. It was absolutely typical toddler behavior. You could have talked to a social worker. You could have talked to a doctor. You could have asked for advice. Instead, you chose to viciously beat Curtis. After you killed Curtis, your lies and manipulation continued as you attempted to hide what you had done. You put Curtis's body in a stroller, which I just saw these photos, with his infant brother and carted them around town, lying to people at the Family Dollar store, and then to the police with complete fabrications about where you had been and what had happened. You claimed Curtis fell at a water park. Of course, now we know that water park wasn't even open. Of course, the police did a great investigation here. They went through the cameras throughout the city of Cleveland to prove your lies. The autopsy proved your lies as it disclosed blunt force trauma throughout Curtis's tiny body from all your beating. Your actions are further compounded because you manipulated the system to remove Curtis from safety, only then to beat him to death for being a toddler within months. Today's sentencing is a moment of accountability. It is a recognition that our society will not tolerate violence against children. I hear about you not knowing who you are or what you're doing, and that you probably should never have gotten Curtis back. That wasn't what these papers and everything shows, and that's why we're here in this courtroom today. I've not heard one apology for causing Curtis's death. You've shown no self-awareness about what triggered you to inflict such pain on a defenseless child. Without recognizing what you did wrong, you'd repeat your conduct if given a chance. There's statements about mental illness. However, none of those statements excuse your conduct. You may recall recently, there was a sentencing in this court. A man from Parma killed his child because he heard voices in his head. He's currently serving a sentence of 30 years to life. Miss Eggleton, your cycle of neglect and abuse stops today. You will not be left alone with your surviving infants again. Your manipulation of the system to get what you want also stops today. As a result of that, on count number 4, the felonious assault count, I'm going to sentence you to 8 years. And as you recall, the rated code sentence on that count, it's 8 plus half, which is 8 plus 4. In count number 5, I'm going to sentence you to 8 years. And on count number 3, the murder, I'm going to sentence you to 15 years to life. I'm going to sentence those cases, or those counts, consecutive to each other. I believe consecutive sentences is necessary to protect and punish you. It's not disproportionate. And I find that these crimes were committed while you were pending case in a diversion program for theft, which I'll find you guilty of that offense on case 634420 and impose a 6-month sentence on that case. I also find that the harm in this case was so great or unusual that a single term does not adequately reflect the seriousness of the conduct. And I think that the history of you shows that these consecutive terms are necessary. So, Ms. Eggleton, the sentence imposed in this court is going to be 31 years to 35 years to life. And I'm going to tell you that when you get out, the parole board will monitor you for that mandatory period of time. If you fail to report or comply, they can obviously sentence you up to 1/2 of any prison sentence this court imposed. Further, there's a notice of duties to enroll as a violent offender under revised code 2903.41. And I see here, there's a signature here that you've been advised of those requirements. Is that your signature there? All right. Is that a yes?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm going to assign my name that you understand these. I'll have a copy given to you. So when you do get out, you'll have an opportunity to have these documents before you. For the purposes of the sentencing, I'm going to mark this as Court's Exhibit 1, which is the autopsy photos protocol and photos, and I'll keep that with the court reporter. And I'm further going to say, do you have the money or means to hire a lawyer for purposes of appeal on this sentence?
Not as right now, no.
All right, so I'm going to appoint the public defender to represent. They'll review the sentence on appeal and make a decision. Ms. Eggleton, I'm going to tell you this, that this sentence gives you an opportunity for reflection and remorse, a chance to acknowledge the harm caused, and to take steps towards your personal growth and healing. You have an opportunity to better yourself while in jail. Take classes, participate in workshops. You can still be a positive force in the lives of your surviving 5 children if you can grow and recognize what led you to take this frustration out on this young toddler. It's my hope that you can learn important life skills and eventually come back into society and help loving and safely interact with grandchildren. Thank you. That's the sentence.
Your Honor, can we have one moment?
Sure.
Your Honor, nothing further.
All right, thank you. Thanks,
Thank you, Your
Roger.
Honor.
Thank you.
Dumbass kid.
I'll be right there.